Good afternoon, everyone. I am Bridget Dotson. I'm the new member outreach associate for the United Nations Foundation. And prior to joining UNF, I worked on Capitol Hill on the Senate side as a legislative staffer. And so today I would like to share a little bit about my experience, what freshman member engagement looks like, and also today with a few of your UNA USA members, we will be delivering a skit for you to demonstrate what a conversation with a freshman member looks like compared to a conversation with a more senior member looks like. So I'll go ahead and let our UNA USA members introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome everyone here in DC as well as online on Hopin. Thank you so much for participating. My name is Bianca Salgado, and I'm the chapter president out in Whittier, Southern California.
Hi, everybody. My name is Igo Ikakite. I'm from the St. Louis chapter. It's good to see everyone here and those online as well, too. Thank you for joining us.
Hi all, my name is Maddie Wren. I am the UNA USA Youth Engagement Officer here at the National Office.
Awesome. Well, thank you for introducing yourselves. So I am originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I don't know if we have any Hoosiers in the room. Oh, okay, go Hoosiers. And I moved out to Washington, D.C. 2018, started right away on Capitol Hill. Again, worked for a senator. He was also a freshman member as well. So that really offered me a unique perspective to what Capitol Hill looks like and what a member of Congress office is like. And so again, just wanted to hit on a few points. The first point is I want to talk a little bit about the first thing really that surprised me working in a congressional office, particularly a freshman member, was really, although he was very educated, Harvard MBA grad, very well informed, but at the same time there were a lot of nuances about working, at the federal level that he was not aware of, a lot of issue areas that he was not informed of. And so I really just want to leave that as an encouragement to all of you that just as much as you're coming in with questions for members of Congress and they may seem informed, there are a lot of times that they may not be fully aware, and so that's where you all come in and inform them and educate them. And this may be the first time that they're interacting with their constituents, again, UNA USA members, and also want to emphasize that there are a few factors that influence their decision making, one being what's going on at the White House, the administration, secondly, what's going on within their political party and the agenda of the political party, but then most importantly, what their constituents care about. So again, don't be intimidated in these meetings. Be very vulnerable and open, and really I want to emphasize the importance of sharing your story, because the stories that you have and the reasons that you are here today are very unique. And this is one of the very few moments that these members of Congress and their staffers will be hearing their stories and be able to be influenced by all of you and hear about the amazing work that what is going on at the United Nations. So also, another point is considering the political climate, foreign policy, I believe, and just the U.S.'s role in the world has been at the forefront of a lot of these member of Congress's agenda, just given what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Afghanistan, the global pandemic. So again, these are issues that are very hot right now on Capitol Hill. So I believe the ears of these members are going to be very open and perceptive to hearing to what you have to say. So with that, we will go ahead and dive into our skit. We have a UNA USA member 1, UNA USA member 2, and then UNA USA member 3, and then I will be acting as first. This will be a skit between a freshman member of Congress and constituents. So we will go ahead and move forward with that. So the narrator can begin.
UNA member shows up 5 minutes before virtual meeting begins, having reviewed the UNA USA talking points.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. What brings you in?
UNA member number 1 unmutes mic and says an introductory greeting to start off the meeting.
Good afternoon, Senator. We are constituents from your district, and we would like to thank you, Senator, for taking the time to meet with us. We truly appreciate it and understand you are working hard to get on board with all of the issue areas being presented to you from constituents.
Well, thank you, Senator. My name is Igo. Joined here is Bianca and Maddie, and we are all members of the United Nations Association of the USA. We've been in DC for the past 2 days participating leadership summit with UN members from across the country. And as members, we would like to share with you why we support the works of the United Nations and why we think it's important for us to pay, for the US to pay our UN dues in full.
Well, first, thank you for bringing this topic to my attention. My team and I have been working diligently to serve constituents across the state. Can you tell me a little bit more about the UN's mission? I have not had the chance to speak with many of constituents on this topic.
Certainly, the UN is made up of 193 member states, and its mission is to maintain international peace and security, protect human rights, deliver humanitarian aid, support sustainable development and climate action, and uphold international law. Their mission is very personal to me as I am an immigrant from one of the countries receiving humanitarian aid. Today, we would like to emphasize the importance of full US engagement with UN bodies in achieving this mission, along with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015.
Thank you for sharing. It's important for me to know where the American people stand on this matter, and what has drawn you to be a supporter of the UN.
The UNA members tell their stories as to why they joined UNA USA.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. Hearing from all of you today has helped me better understand the work of the UN and the importance of US leadership as a member state.
Lastly, we would like to note that since the UN's inception in 1945, the US has been its largest financial contributor.
Well, you may already know that the Biden administration, Senator, released its budget request for the fiscal year 2023. It includes several positive proposals that we care about, including providing a $730 million down payment to begin paying back arrears to UN peacekeeping operations that the US had accrued since fiscal year 2017. We ask that you support the President Biden's budget and ensure that we fully pay the funds of the UN peacekeeping and regular budgets dues.
Funding for the UN system comes from voluntary and assessed contributions. Assessed contributions are required payments from member states via the UN regular and peacekeeping budgets. The UN regular budget funds the UN's core bodies and activities outside of peacekeeping. The UN peacekeeping budget funds a massive global military deployment, 10 missions with 85,000 personnel spread across 3 continents.
I understand. Thank you for elaborating on the assessed contributions. This is new and relevant information I was not aware of. I will have my team review this information and stay in touch with you.
Well, thank you, Congressman. That is right. It is relevant information. Americans remain overwhelmingly united in their belief that the US needs to maintain an active role in the UN, with 84% of voters saying that it is very important or somewhat important.
We are happy to provide briefing materials to leave with you and your staff member that handles this issue area. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us, Senator. Would you mind if we took a screenshot of our Zoom call?
Of course, happy to do so. Well, I have to jump to my next meeting. Have a good day, and please do not hesitate to reach out to my office if I can be of further service to you.
Thank you,
so much,
Senator.
Thank you so much.
So as you can see, that was a conversation between the freshman member of Congress and a UNA USA member. So again, going into that meeting, the best way to approach it is going in with an open mind and understanding and respectful of the member of Congress's time and understanding that he may not be informed. So you're really, it's kind of like speaking to someone that's never heard of the UN before, kind of go at it with, very basics, clear remarks, clear, statements about the UN and just giving a general informative information to the member of Congress. And in addition to that, I would also like to note that you may notice that the member of Congress may be rushed because he may have a meeting following the meeting that he's currently in, or he may have to run to the floor for votes. So in that case, again, just being very respectful of his time. If you notice that he's trying to rush off the phone, just do your best to pick up on that. And I also think it's best to have conversations about these situations, what ifs, prior to going into that meeting. That way you're prepared and have a point person to kind of give you a side cue on how to respond to that current situation. So again, just being prepared in advance really is the best way to go about it. So moving on to the second skit, it's going to be with a more senior member of Congress and again, UNA USA members.
UNA member shows up 5 minutes before virtual meeting begins, having reviewed the UNA USA talking points.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. What brings you in today?
UNA member number 1 unmutes mic and says an introductory greeting to start off the meeting.
Good afternoon, Representative. We are constituents from your state, and we would like to thank you, Representative Bridget, for taking the time to meet with us today.
Well, thank you, Representative. My name is Eagle, and I have Maddie and Bianca here with me, and we're all members of the United Nations Association of the USA. We've been in DC for the past 3 days participating in a leadership summit with UNA members from across the country. And as members, we would like to share with you why we support the work of the United Nations and why we think it's important for us to pay our UN dues in full.
Indeed, in today's political climate, there is a tremendous amount of interest in UN foreign policy, international security, and overall the U.S.'s role in the world. The events taking place in Ukraine and Afghanistan have surely influenced this, although I'm curious to know the UN's current status in both of those countries.
Certainly, Representative. In Ukraine, the UN, various humanitarian agencies are responding to the needs of Ukrainian civilians, providing food, shelter, medical care, mental health, and educational support to the millions displaced inside and outside the country.
Also in Afghanistan, the UN has played a vital role in providing salaries to teachers so they can continue educating girls in schools. The system set up has bypassed the Taliban and provided the wages directly to the teachers themselves.
This is insightful. And what brought you to be a member of UNA USA?
UNA members share their stories.
Thank you for sharing your stories. The UN appears to be doing good work. Please stay in touch with my team. I would like to remain up to date on the work the UN is doing in Ukraine and Afghanistan.
We will certainly stay in communication with your staff, especially as appropriations bills come to a close. As you may already know, the Biden administration released its budget requests for fiscal year 2023. It includes several positive proposals that we care about, including providing a $730 million down payment to begin paying back arrears to UN peacekeeping operations that the U.S. has accrued since fiscal year 2017. We ask that you support the President's budget proposal and ensure we fully fund our UN peacekeeping and regular budget dues. Thank you once again for taking the time to meet with us, Representative.
Please share this information and any additional briefing materials with my staff for review. Thank you. So you may notice in this skit with the more senior member, of course, that senior member of Congress is a lot more informed into the nitty-gritty of what may be going on in the foreign policy space. He asked very specific questions about Afghanistan, Ukraine. So again, be sure to review those materials and resources that Maria provided you. I pulled these points directly from those resources. And again, those resources that are provided are hitting on many topics that are being covered on Capitol Hill. So again, do your best just to be informed. Also just read about your member of Congress as well too. You know, what has he been vocal about recently? What topics has he taken on during his year in office? And then secondly, you'll also notice that, again, the member of Congress tried to close out that conversation. Again, he may have to run to votes or just may have another meeting to get to. So in that case, the UNA USA member in her closing was able to squeeze in the main ask that we want to make sure that all of you ask your members of Congress. So if you notice that there's some time and you're able to squeeze that last ask in, please do so. At the same time, many of times in these meetings, the foreign policy staffer will be in that meeting with the member of Congress. So should that member of Congress have to step out, that staffer will be there to answer additional questions and take those briefing materials that all of you provide. And again, they should provide their contact information. That way you'll be able to follow up and stay in touch. And so that is all. We will go ahead and open it up to Q&A. Happy to answer any questions any of you may have. Yes, all the way in the back. Yeah, so we have a skit with the staffer drafted. I think it would be pretty similar. Again, if it's a freshman office, again that staffer, and actually I can speak to this. So I'll go ahead and give you an example. So when I was working for the freshman senator, taking those meetings those first few months, I myself, along with the senator, we had not really developed our agenda and where we stood on a lot of these issue areas that these constituents were bringing to our attention. So as a staffer, I really took it as informational meetings for me, where I was, I asked questions to the constituents and I relied on them to give me as much information as possible. So that's where you come in and do your best to be prepared and informed on those main points and sharing your stories as well too. Whereas for a senior member of Congress, and that staffer may be more informed, and you may experience some pushback as well too. Again, don't be intimidated by that. These staffers are very informed, again, into the nitty-gritty policy, but again, what they don't have is those unique stories and experiences that you all have. So again, if you can always circle back to your unique experiences, your unique stories, and share that and lean on that, I think that's the best way to go about it, because it'll make you stand out and set you apart, if that answers your question.
Bridget, can I ask, what do you do if they ask a question about something that you don't know the answer to?
Yeah, definitely, and that happens a lot. And so in that case, just you can say that, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm not, I don't have that information, but happy to circle back with you. And again, in those resources that we provide you, the answers may be there. So if you want to provide that and send that to the staffer, I know all of you will have the contact information for that staffer, so please feel free to reach out to them. And in that thank you note, please include that additional information.
And I think there's a question on the screen at the bottom.
Okay. Should you aim for a conversation, or should you just get right to the point and out? So if you noticed, again, it's best to maintain that formality with speaking with these members of Congress and also the staffers as well too. So always, and that's anytime you're introducing yourself and having a first conversation with someone, is you want to introduce yourself, you want to have an introduction, a setup as well, which is what we showed in these skits, and then get to those main points. And again, have these conversations prior to that meeting. So determine who's going to say what in that meeting, who's going to share their story, who's going to do the introduction, who's going to do the closing. If you can determine that in those group meetings prior to jumping in on that meeting with a member of Congress, that would be the best way to go about it. Any additional questions? Yes.
Sorry, it's not a question, maybe a suggestion. Would it be possible to ask, advocacy is a matter of trade-off, right? Between us and the Congress. So is it possible to ask a question, do you have anything that we can do for you?
Yeah, of course. I think that's a really good question. Of course, and I think the member of Congress may take that from the angle of maybe he may require additional information, or would like to know additional information, and would like you to stay in contact or in communication with their staffer. So yeah, definitely feel free to ask that question. I'd be interested to know how the member of Congress would respond to a question like that, but I think that's completely fine. Yes. Any additional questions? I think we have one more.
If the conversation at all turns political, how should we handle it?
So
in
for
the sense
the
of partisan politics, sorry.
Again, you may experience some pushback from staffers, but again, you want to maintain that professionalism, and on your end, as you know, what we can control is what we do as constituents, as UNA USA members. So, of course, we do not want to make it political. We want to remain neutral, and of course, hit on these main points and the great work that the United Nations is doing. And again, should the staffer, get political, or should you experience some pushback, again, just circle back to your stories and circle back to the point of that conversation and what you're wanting to convey. Don't let that sway you in any way. Yes.
Logistics. So I noticed that there are a lot of people in my group, and we need to coordinate ahead of time. So how does that happen, and when would that happen?
Yeah, so I believe we have group meetings later today with your leads, UNA USA leads. So in those meetings, be sure to have those conversations and determine who's going to say what and the timing of that, and a cue for closing that conversation as well too. Because again, these meetings are limited to 30 minutes. I would recommend that at that 5-minute mark, that someone give off a cue, or if you all just want to pay attention to the time. That way you can make sure that you squeeze in that closing and that ask.
And a question from Mel online. At the start of our meeting, should we ask how long we have to talk? Or we have to talk, I think it means.
So I actually believe it is already set in stone that you all have 30 minutes for a meeting, either 15 or 30 minutes.
Awesome. And from London, is it okay to thank our member of Congress for supporting an initiative that may be related to our discussion first, such as being a strong supporter of our armed forces or global disability rights?
Absolutely, and that is why I encouraged you to do your research prior to having that meeting with that member of Congress, because should they have recently taken an action on the UN or a relevant issue, then you can go into that meeting prepared and thank them for doing so. And that way it shows them also that you're informed and staying up to date on what they're doing as well.
And I think this question, I believe they're just asking for some tips on what your unique story is and what should you make sure to include.
Yeah, of course. So, like we mentioned in the skit, we had an immigrant, right? Any personal ties that you may have, and if you've gone overseas, if you've served internationally, really sharing why you are a UNA USA member. All of you have your own unique story to share, and I think that can go a long way. And again, these members don't have these conversations often, hearing from their constituents and hearing these stories. So again, just want to encourage that you share your unique story, and you can determine again in those prep meetings prior to your congressional meeting who wants to share and who's comfortable sharing, but really having I think a touching story that will really pull out the members' heartstrings. I think those are good ones as well, at least coming from the staffer perspective as well too. Really, when I heard from members of Congress, I know a topic that when I was a staffer, we had a lot of ALS patients come to us, and that was a common issue that kept being presented to us. And then the senator also had a family member that struggled with ALS, and then there were a few team members that also had family members that struggled with ALS. So then we all ended up getting on board on this issue, which had that not been the case, we may not have. So again, just bringing in those personal connections, those personal ties, I think are always very helpful. Yes, in the back over here. Yes, the gentleman standing up.
I'm curious, is it appropriate to basically ask if we can count on their support for the ask that we're giving, or where do they stand on that? Is that an appropriate question?
I think we should keep it to the ask. I think because a lot of times, again, for example, with these freshman member offices, they may not necessarily have a stance, or they may still be developing their agenda. So again, staying informed on any actions they've recently taken as it pertains to the UN, and keeping to these talking points. And again, just hearing your story, because what matters more is as constituents, they need to hear from you, they need to hear your stories. And that's what's going to have an influence, more so than the member, maybe sharing his perspective, if he has really a pinpointed, opinion on some of these issues or not. Because it also, again, and they serve on different committees as well too, so they may not be informed on these issues as well too.
Becky wants to know, is there anything else we need to know about protocol besides addressing them as senator or representative, and what would be the protocol with staff?
So, senator, representative, congressman, congresswoman are the terms that we can stick to, and then staffers, you can just stick to their name. First name is fine. Yes. So I believe they will be. I believe it's already set up as in your email, or this may be more of a question for Maria since she's handling the logistics of that.
So you received an email with from Maria with your meetings, and that should include which other UNA members will be in your meeting, and the top name, which should say advocacy lead, is the person who's your lead. So if you don't know who they are, we're going to introduce you all during this meeting or during the meeting after, and it might be one of the staffers. If you're in Kentucky, North Carolina, or Alabama, it's me.
Yes, that answer. Any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you for listening. Good luck in your meetings. Again, happy to answer any additional questions. If you want to pull me off to the side, Maria can also provide my contact information as well. And good luck. I wish you the best. This is very exciting for members of Congress and also for staffers and all of you. So I wish you all the best.
It is me. So what's going to happen now, we are actually going to break up into our state group meetings. Hopefully everyone has brought a laptop or tablet and your headgear, whatever the headgear is, because we need to connect you with your other fellow members who may be joining online. So Maria is going to let us know the locations of the state group meetings, but if you can just prepare to come together physically and online. Some of the states will be in here in the back area as well. Some states will also go back to Hemisphere A and B. So we will have those location announcements shortly. So you have a brief break before we put you back to work. All right, thank you.